From tariffs to trust, global economic security is in turmoil. Business leaders from around the world have been right here in Ottawa for the B7. That's the business group of the G7, looking for ways to get things back on track. I'm Mercedes Stephenson. The West Block starts now. From critical minerals to clean energy, the B7 is gathering ideas to present to world leaders at the G7 in Alberta. We speak with Erin OToole on how he thinks energy is key to future relations with the U.S., as well as what the former Conservative leader thinks the party should do next. That's in 2 minutes. Plus our political panel on what's hitting and missing on Parliament Hill. As B7 leaders meet in Ottawa, the economic relationships of G7 countries are front and center. And of course, the U.S. is top of mind. Can countries like Canada get back to the relationship they had with America before the Trump administration? Erin OToole manages a global risk advisory firm now, but what a change a few years make. This was OToole Friday at the B7 in Ottawa, the same Museum of History room where he was 4 years ago, under very different circumstances.
We're also going to make major investments.
In 2021, OToole was leader of the Conservative Party and in the very same room for the leaders' debate during the election, facing off against Justin Trudeau. OToole was forced out of his role as leader later by his own caucus. There's a lot of ground we could cover with Erin OToole, who joins us now. Great to have you back on the show, Erin. Welcome.
Great to be back with you, Mercedes.
You've got a lot of political experience under your belt, not only as the opposition leader, which most people remember most recently, but you were a cabinet minister for Stephen Harper. Looking at how Mark Carney's first couple of weeks in office have gone, what's your analysis?
Well, look, in this age of 51st state rhetoric and things like this, I wish our Prime Minister well. I want Canada to succeed, and I think that meeting at the White House was an example of him doing well for the country, and I'm glad to see my Conservative colleagues want to help in a Team Canada approach with respect to trade with the U.S., security, tone of rhetoric. I do think the cabinet did seem a lot like a Trudeau cabinet, and I was very disappointed with the comments of Minister Guilbeault. I don't think he should be in cabinet from his performance, and with some of the national unity things we're facing, Mercedes, as a country, flippant comments can actually lead to more division. And in an age of polarization, we need serious ministers that are going to respect all parts of the country. Prime Minister Carney is from Alberta, so I'm hoping he looks at this and asks his minister to take a better tone, a respectful tone, and understand the tensions in this country.
How serious do you think that national unity threat is in Alberta?
It's very serious. You know, it's hard for me to believe now, but back in 2020, my first call with the Prime Minister, I raised national unity concerns. And a lot of the Ottawa media sort of downplayed it. Oh, things aren't that bad. The seeds were there because of a sense that the livelihood of families there were being held back by Ottawa on energy policies, on environmental policies. Tensions were inflamed in COVID and some of the lockdown and tensions that the whole country has faced. So things are much worse now, and I do think the polarization in the U.S. has continued to push up the temperature here. So I think all ministers of the Crown in Canada should be very, very respectful that national unity has to be number one. It's more important than Canada-U.S. relations. And I just saw some very errant comments by the new cabinet, and I hope the Prime Minister nips that in the bud.
Speaking of the U.S. and national unity, and I'm an Alberta girl myself, so I remember the firewall letter coming out, studied under some of the professors who actually were involved in writing that. So these feelings of Western alienation have been there a long time, but they're obviously quite magnified right now, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And the government has to deal with that, and they also have to deal with, at the same time, what's happening south of the border, which I know is something you're talking a lot about at this B7 Business Leaders Conference from all around the G7. Is there a sense that the relationship with the U.S. can be normalized again while Donald Trump is in, or is that a dangerous thing to try to do?
Well, everyone acknowledges there'll be uncertainty, but I do think people believe that we will get down to a lower tariff range, and that the U.S. administration and the president himself will start seeing some of the benefits in global trade for the U.S. and for their economy and for making sure you have Halloween and Christmas presents on the shelves. He's now realizing that if you blow up global trade, it hurts everyone. Canada, going back to the Carney cabinet, energy will be the key to us getting the U.S. back to serious negotiations. So Prime Minister Carney, I think, has reset the tone with that meeting. That was great. Now we have to talk Turkey, and our big advantage with the U.S. is energy, not just oil and gas, but critical minerals, uranium, decarbonizing the North American electricity grid with nuclear from Ontario, hydro from Quebec and Manitoba. Energy will be key, so all the rhetoric about energy superpower, I hope the Prime Minister follows through on that. It will also help us re-engage the U.S. at the same time.
I know we share a love of defense and security policy and nerding out, so I have to ask you, this was the first election where defense was really on the ballot, although there wasn't huge differences between what the two main parties offered. How serious do you think Canada's defense and security situation is when it comes to our sovereignty, when it comes to our military, and how quickly does the government need to act?
Yeah, finally, defense is a top issue, and I'm gone. You know, I wish I was still there, but I thought there was good things in both policies. I think the Conservatives' policies, many of which I advocated for, set the tone, and Prime Minister Carney tried to meet that. I'd like to see the submarine RFP roll out quite quickly. We need more surveillance in the Arctic. They announced the Jorn project with Australia, but we need subsea cables. We need to know who's in our Arctic now. We can't even answer that question. So that kit for the Arctic is key. But look at the retention problems our military is having, Mercedes. I know you study this. We need better pay. We need the bases being great places for families and the environment. We need to show that people can serve for a career serving Canada and show the pride is back in the Canadian Armed Forces. So I think the 2%, a mixture of that is to pay and benefits and better equipment for our people.
I, of course, have to ask you about the election. As a former Conservative leader, what I keep hearing from the Conservatives close to Pierre Poilievre and in that senior circle is they did great. They got more seats around the GTA. They had higher numbers than ever. Not a lot of acknowledgement that there was a 20-point lead that got blown. And when you talk about who's around the leader now, Andrew Scheer is going to be the leader in the House. Jenny Byrne, no sign that she's going anywhere. Do you have the sense that Pierre Poilievre has learned any lessons from this election, or should he have learned any lessons from this election?
Well, certainly he learned a lesson. He lost, and he lost his seat. And I think he's shown some contrition and some acknowledgement of that. There were wins, Mercedes. You know, we have seats in Windsor and a lot of seats in Ontario that we picked up. Some of the labor, organized labor outreach that my team began, that Pierre continued and took to a new level, made breakthroughs. But that was by growing the tent with folks that traditionally voted NDP. So when the NDP collapsed, we got some of those votes. But we have to go after suburban and urban professionals, and they want to see more smart policy like Pierre put out on the Arctic. They want to see Conservatives coming on your show. You know, if we're not prepared to defend our vision for Canada, we're not going to win those people that might flip between Liberal and Conservative their whole life. So did we get all the people in Ontario that just voted for Doug Ford a few months ago? Probably not. So let's stop the internecine warfare between our provincial parties. Let's be proud as Conservatives. Let's talk about the vision on energy, on the Arctic, on national unity that we've long talked about. But let's reach out, and I do see Pierre doing that. I wish him well in that, because we actually need a change in this country, and after the first cabinet meeting of Prime Minister Carney, I didn't see that change. So let's get the Conservatives ready to be that next time.
Do you feel that your platform and your positions were vindicated a bit by what the issues were in this election?
Yes, and you know, I'm very glad that Mr. Carney took a few of our policies from 21 because they were good for the country. My election, unfortunately, was all about COVID and vaccine mandates and things like this. But sometimes in a democracy, the opposition puts up ideas. They may not get to implement them, but if the government picks them up, that shows our democracy works. It's not all about yelling and screaming on Twitter. It's about putting forward ideas that are in the best interest of the country. And I think if the Conservatives do that, Pierre had some good ones on capital gains and other things in the election. do that and provide the vision that leads people to voting Conservative next time.
Erin O'Toole, thank you for joining us with your thoughts and insights. Always great to have you on the show.
Great to see you.